created a list of problems that I had going on in my body, but actually it turns out that I was 27 weeks pregnant and absolutely oblivious to it all. So first up on the list, I hadn't had a period in months. Now, this is like a typical sign of pregnancy, but during the peak pandemic, I was just thinking, well, I'm not going to go to a doctor about this. There's people in. I'll just leave it. I don't know if this is like a sign of pregnancy, but I had really bad discharge, so maybe I'm just out on myself for that. But yeah. So I sent this Snapchat to my friend saying someone needs to convince me I'm not pregnant because a test isn't cutting it. Yeah, so I was maybe in denial, maybe stupid, I don't know, call me what you want, but there it is. There it is. And there's the Snapchat that I sent to them. I didn't get my positive test until about 2 weeks after this photo. So there's me still just living my life with this bump during lockdown, thinking that it's normal. Once my friends had convinced me to take another test, it came up positive. Everyone was still really, really shocked. And we were like, what are you gonna do? So I ended up having to call the midwives and try and book in for an ultrasound. And they were like, well, you don't normally come in for your first scan until you're about 12 weeks. They were trying to figure out when my periods were. I said, I can't remember the last time I had a period. I said, please get me in for a scan because I have quite a big belly. And they were like, okay. It took a lot of convincing for them to get me in for a scan. This is what I could see on the screen. And I was like, oh, there's a little nose and there's a head. But it's not the generic, you know, you can see the whole body in like the 12-week scans and what other scans. I never even had that. And she just looks at me, she goes, how far along do you think you are, sorry? And I was like, about 14 weeks, maybe. She goes, well, this says you're about 27 weeks and 5 days. And I just went, shit. And I looked at her and I went, really? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, shit. I was like, shit. And I just burst into tears because all that was going through my head was 27 weeks. That's 13 weeks until a baby's born. Like a pregnancy is 40 weeks. That's all that was going through my head. Anyway, my boyfriend at the time, Chester's dad, he was sat in the car and I was just thinking, how am I going to go out to this man? Can we just bear in mind, I was 20 years old. He was 22, 23. I had to go out to the car to this man and say, we're having a baby in 13 weeks. So I go to a few other appointments. They said they couldn't find out the gender because he was too big. They couldn't test for Down syndrome and other tests that they do in early pregnancy because, again, it was too far along. So I went out to the car and I said, we're having a baby in 13 weeks, and he was absolutely buzzing. He was over the moon. I was a bit scared because we were still living at my mum and dad's. We were both on furlough, but we made it work, and now I have a beautiful 2.5-year-old.
Just going back to the first thing she said, where she hadn't had a period in, I can't remember how many weeks or how long it was, but it was a while. Surely that's the biggest giveaway straight away. And she talks about not wanting to go to the doctors during COVID, during the lockdown. You know, that's probably makes sense. Well, it makes sense, but also you're thinking, surely pregnant here. And then, so that's the first thing that I think of. You're thinking, it's quite a big giveaway, like. And then she's talking about the bump, and the bump was, you know, it was big. It was big enough to see as she was showing off to a pal on Snapchat. It was the most blatantly obvious thing I think I've watched in any of these videos ever. So yeah, confusing. She says she was possibly in denial, and I think she probably was. Looking at the images and what she's talking about, I think it's very clear that she was in denial. But of course, you know, it all ended very well. She talks about coming out of the hospital and telling the dad that they were going to have a kid, and he was over the moon and excited and happy and whatnot. And now they've got the 2.5-year-old. So yeah, all ended well, but a very frantic and probably quite anxious start, to be honest. You know, could you imagine just you go in, you know, you just get told, you're having a week in, I think it was 13 weeks roughly. So yeah, I can imagine that being quite making your heart sink a little bit. But no, it's ended well, so good for them.